when I'm on stages and I do keynotes and I talk about the 80-20 rule, and I use many different examples. So most people have heard, do we know that throughout the world and even within the US, that 80% of the wealth is owned by 20% of the people. It's true across your life in ways that you don't even expect. Like you wear 20% of your wardrobe 80% of the time.
Hey everyone, it's Jen Foster here with the Elite Expert in Podcast. We're really excited today to have Steve Acho with us today, and he is a hacking human progress. So we're really excited because he is inspiring, ambitious, and he helps you simplify the complexity in your business and professional lives. So we're really excited because he is a self-taught musician with songs that have reached over 50 million streams globally. So Steve also has an MBA from Japan, where he lived and worked as the president of Mazda and developed an innovative language learning methodology. So we're excited to have you, Steve. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in Japan. Sounds like you're great story.
Yeah. Well, I'm born and raised in Detroit, and I've lived here all my life, other than about 4 years in Japan. So I was interested in it because I've been doing martial art my whole life. And as a kid, I was doing karate, and they would have you count in Japanese, and I have a good ear. Like, I was born with a good ear. So I can imitate like accents, and I can imitate language, and it helped me discover like how to play music by ear. So I just have a good ear. Like, that's the thing that I was born in.
Mm.
And I just got interested in the language, and I studied it in high school. Then I went there for the first time when I was about 17 with my karate instructor. And I realized that 2 years of high school Japanese was similar to zero. And I have opinions on how language and music and other things could be taught better, and more people would rapidly be proficient or functional, at least, in these things. But I just took an interest in it, and, almost along the same lines, took up music and eventually developed this framework for improving anything. So I ended up fascination with Japan started with martial art, and then I did language, and then I put myself through college as an interpreter and a translator, went back and forth a few times, and then got hired by the president of Mazda to work in Hiroshima for a few years, and, was at my linguistic breakdown every day because everything was in Japanese. And so I developed over time and over a lot of iterations and testing this methodology that just very quickly, like in 2 weeks, people were noticing and asking me, like, not to degrade your Japanese skills before, but like in the last month or so, did you get a shot? You just understand Japanese? And I'm like, no, I discovered this thing that I've been doing, and I'm testing it on other people, that like other English speaking people who had lived in Japan longer than me and basically couldn't order at McDonald's, even though they were married to a Japanese, had, half Japanese. So I tested it, and it was something that was like teachable. It was repeatable.
Mhm.
That's been really cool. That's kind of the thing that drives me,
Yeah.
is to be able to be useful, right? Like, so if it's something that I learned how to do, like if it took me 5 years to reach whatever level of fluency I was in Japanese, and you're ambitious and you say, Steve, I really want to learn Japanese, I want to be able to get you there in 6 months, because you just repeat the same things I did. Like, we should be improving
Right.
in every other area of life and sports and everything.
Yeah.
We are improving, right? I know somebody who had a 50-yard dash world record
Uh-huh.
when he's in his 70s now.
Wow.
He says every middle school beats that
Yeah.
across the
Right.
now. So like, us, so we shouldn't be doing things the same way,
Right. Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is success leaves clues. And it's like, why
Yeah.
reinvent the wheel? Like, let's look at what the other people were doing that we've been
Yeah.
successful, and then let's follow those clues and do what they're doing. So that's great.
So look at the successful people, or anything that I did or someone else did that was successful, and just deconstruct it
Mm-hmm.
from the end. It doesn't matter what it could be a great sales pitch email
Mm-hmm.
that comes to me,
Yeah.
like, totally unannounced, and it's just a cold email. But I'm like, wow, this is a really good email. Why is this a really good email? What about it caught my attention?
Yeah. I like that you like to analyze it all. So let's dive into some how to master a new skill. I know. So I
Sure.
actually grew up also playing by ear and learning. I did the
Oh,
Suzuki
cool.
method, which is a Japanese actually.
All
We played
right.
the piano and
Yeah.
learned by ear, and we had to listen every night to the tapes to listen to the music. But I still like, it's been a lot of years since I was, 10 years old playing Suzuki. I didn't do
Yeah.
it a whole full until I was 18. But I know all of book 1 through 5. I can just sit down at a piano and play it still. Like I still
Right now
know,
even?
yeah, I still know all the songs.
Right.
Because it's
That's
just muscle
great.
memory and
Our
you know how it goes,
uh,
and it did help me with other music and just, being able to just sit down and, play something, so
so I'm curious, you were obviously motivated to keep going, which is great.
yeah.
Did the methodology, the Suzuki methodology that helped you learn how to play piano better, did that creep into other areas of your life where you're like, "Could kind of apply this principle," or does it not really
There was
over?
some skills for sure, like the repetition and the memorization and, those skills that they teach you and the discipline of practice and those kind of things.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, great.
Well, let's dive into some of
Very
your methodology and how do you master a new skill? Especially if it's new, like you said, like, can't even order food in Japanese, but you've lived there and have a Japanese wife, like,
yeah,
yeah, how do you
yeah.
do that? Or
That's
what's
more
step
embarrassing.
1?
Yeah. Well, I think so I would hesitate to use the word master.
Okay.
I think when to use the word functional because to be functional, like if, for example, we'll just use the music one as an example. When I'm on stages and I do keynotes and I talk about the 80-20 rule and I use many different examples. So most people have heard, do we know that throughout the world and even within the US, that 80% of the wealth is owned by 20% of the people.
Mm.
It's true across your life in ways that you don't even expect. Like you wear 20% of your wardrobe 80% of the time, right?
Oh,
You like there's so many ways that it manifests. And so for example, there are 250,000 words in English.
well,
That's a lot.
yeah.
Now, someone like me who communicates for a living, I have an advanced degree, I speak another language. I'm I try and I actually look to be a better communicator. I hope I am this month more so than last month. So I actually work on that.
Mhm.
And even someone like me only uses 1,000 words. It's not that I only know 1,000 words, but I only use 1,000 words. So if you think about that, before you think about mastering anything, but just imagine a person coming from another country, no exposure to English, and all they know is there's 250,000 words in the dictionary. Like, where do I start?
Right.
But it's so less daunting a task if you just know the fact that this isn't 80-20, this is 99-1.
Well,
All of us only use a very small portion of the vocabulary, even that we know, let alone many words that we don't know,
mm,
right? And that most people don't use on a regular basis. So that just right away, before you start getting into anything, changes your mindset of this isn't as daunting as I thought because I could literally be functional in a language in a few months if I'm choosing the right kinds of phrases and things that I'm highly likely to come across, right? So if you're in a certain business and you answer the phone and you're booking appointments or whatever, you have to know times on the clock and you're going to have a repeatable conversation and that's going to grow into other things.
mhm.
So just to know that you can know dozens of words, you're not going to master English. I don't know that I've mastered English. I don't know when anybody has, right?
Right.
So when it comes to music, the demonstration that I do on stage is I have a piano and I kind of do my keynote and I mix in music and I do like a custom song and have people sing along and do some silly stuff during it. But one of the ways that I bring it in is to explain that in music, and I have no training. I don't know how to read music. I've never taken a lesson. I wouldn't pass, a third grade music class. But somebody explained this to me a long time ago and it made sense of music for me. So a chord on the piano or guitar or any kind of stringed instrument is just 3 notes, 3 or more notes,
Mm.
but let's just call it three. So 3 notes is a chord. Every time you play 3 notes, there are millions of combinations, whatever that math is, 88 keys, third power, or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Like there's so many combinations. But if you know four, watch what you can do. And so I start playing and I say, I'm just going to play these four chords
Well,
with the same timing in the same order. And then I proceed to sing like 15 different songs that everybody knows.
yeah.
And that day I was just playing four chords only in the same order. If I play
Mm.
them in a different order, I could sing another 50 songs.
Right.
And now if I learn a fifth chord, now I could play 500 songs. And so did you master playing the piano or guitar or ukulele? No, but I would say that if your goal is mastery and that means, playing in a symphony or whatever, that's okay. That's just a different path, right?
Mm.
But you really want to do is play the guitar around a campfire while you and your friends are singing along. That is not something that people that think they're bad at music even can't do very quickly.
Right.
Because again, like 20, like this, all you need is a handful of hand positions
Mhm.
and then this and you'll get it. I mean, it
Right.
just takes some not hundreds of hours, not the 10,000-hour rule. Like
Right.
we're not mastering. So that's what I've applied to my life in so many ways because Fotboll, no one for it. He wanted that one on the goal. They're live, they fall. If it molded it on what the harder you do, they'd be so fall. Or on the most first spinning on the loading, and some of them owl, where when I'll get back in company and they unloaded and all rule football, because unloaded more. Have had some level of success in all of these different, seemingly unrelated areas, but there's a framework that ties it together. So back to your original question, how do you start? I think you start by really, I'm sure you've heard and talked about SMART goals, right?
Mhm.
So it's big, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound.
Right. I
And
actually
those,
just did a YouTube video on that. I
oh,
did a
did you?
YouTube video
Okay.
on that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's great.
No.
I think SMART is great. It's a great way to set goals and be clear about what you want. I do kind of harp on one of them that I think is covered in relevant,
Mhm.
but I want to make sure that people are setting goals, even if they follow all the rules. Like if
Mm.
you say, I want to lose 20 pounds by X date, I think as an example, just to use that simple example, most people who say they want to lose weight, they don't actually mean that. They say, they mean, I want to lose my belly. I want to
Yeah.
fit into my jeans, look better for summer.
Yeah.
They don't really care what they weigh.
Yeah.
And so if they're measuring the wrong thing, it kind of doesn't matter,
Right. It's not
right?
really relevant how many
Very.
pounds.
So just that's my first spiel on the smart thing is just make sure that like own it. If you want to look great in a bathing suit, own it.
Yeah.
Like take a picture of yourself in a bathing suit. Don't show it to anyone. Go do whatever you think is right, like nutrition, fitness, whatever you're able to do. It's not like that science is unknown, but whatever fits into your lifestyle. And then 3 weeks later, take another picture.
Mm.
But for God, throw out the scale if you
Mhm.
really aren't measuring,
Mom.
right? So I have a great visual of a before and after picture. And you've seen 100 of these, obviously, right? The reason I show this one is this one. Now, this is a woman that's out of shape in one, and then in the other one, she's like muscular
Mm.
and vascular. And I'm not saying everybody is wants to try and look like that.
Yeah.
But the reason I show it is because in the before picture, she's, I think, 135 pounds. And in the after picture, she's 135 pounds. So if she said, I want to lose weight, she could
Yeah.
have done the smart goal.
Mm.
She would have just stopped doing this intense,
Mhm.
physical nutrition regimen and totally lost out on something, but she owned the thing that she wanted to do. So
Yeah.
I'm never suggesting that everybody wants to look like a bodybuilder or whatever,
Yeah.
but just like thing that you want to do.
Right.
And then the 80/20, then say like, okay, given that I want to transform my body and be able to do this, and that's the outcome, what are the most essential elements to get there? Given that I'm going to travel and I'm making this up in Italy for a week, like I'm not going to master, I'm not even going to be functional in conversational Italian, but what am I likely to do? I'm likely to introduce myself,
Mhm.
tell people where I'm from, ask questions of them. Where's the bathroom?
Right. That's
I
the
mean, I
number
can
one.
predict
Where's the bathroom?
where's the
And where's the
bathroom
best
and like,
place to eat? Where's the good food?
all the stuff that you predict you'll know.
Mhm.
You don't have to go through the Italian dictionary. You don't have to buy like Italian for dummies
Mm.
or Italian for busy people, or there's no such thing. There's just a language, and then you use it in a different way than I might because of our personas are different, right?
Mhm.
And so once you do that, before you even get into the work of doing it, you can just, it's like to use the weight example again, right? Or to transform your body. if you just know the principle of HIT, which is
Mhm.
high intensity, if you into your life, some version of there's a protocol called the Tabata
Right.
protocol. It's actually 4 minutes long.
Right.
So if you don't have 4 minutes a day, you need to reevaluate your life. But
Yeah.
basically, 20 seconds of hardcore, get your heart rate up. I don't care what you do. Jump up as high as you can.
Mhm.
Bring your knees up as high as you can. 20 seconds, rest for 10 seconds. Do that 8 times at 4 minutes. That is what I would say is the 80-20 or more, like the 99-1.
Mhm.
But that's an example of something, right? And then maybe like work the big muscles in your body. So
Mhm.
there's thousands of exercises you can do,
Yeah.
but basic muscle is the engine that burns fat.
Mhm.
You don't worry about bulking up, but really muscle is the thing that burns fat,
Yeah.
right? And so if you push your body through space, pull your body through space, or just do some kind of resistance to pull and you do squats, there it is, 3 exercises.
Yeah.
That's it.
And doing
Now we've
Tabata,
gone
that's
for
only 4 minutes a day.
platforming. That's another example, right? So you can find these things and say, like, what is really the least I need to know, the least I need to do? And really the most important thing, like the silver bullet of everything that I've found, and really the hack and the mental state that I think you have to be concerned with is intrinsic. So motivation is kind of a funny word. Like when people call me a motivational speaker, I cringe a little bit because I understand that you can be motivated by external
Mhm.
factors. You can want your parents to be proud. You can want your friends to be proud. You can be motivated by Tony Robbins and jump up and down at his seminar. Like those are all
Mhm.
real things.
Mhm.
But I would suggest that though that external motivation is not going to get you through hard times,
Right.
and it doesn't last. So
Mhm.
how do you have intrinsic motivation? What is it? The answer to that is one word, and it's progress.
Well,
Start doing something. Like I remember after 2 years of high school Japanese, I was in a public place and I overheard these people speaking, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm going to see if I can pick up some Japanese." And I remember being embarrassed because after listening for 5 minutes, not only didn't I know what they were saying, I couldn't even identify whether they were speaking Japanese or Korean. I feel like you
no.
have progress, right?
No.
Take a music example, right?
Mhm.
Like you've taken piano lessons for, 6 months or a year, whatever it is. And then you're at a party and they're like, "Hey, you play piano, come play piano."
Yeah.
And you're like,
And
and then
it's
you
so
start playing this
scary and you don't wanna play in front of anyone.
it's scary, but all you know, but you can't actually play like, I'm just gonna play the
Yeah.
a blue, yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna play where it comes to need. No, you learned it, memorized the speech
Right.
and you did the memory thing. But basically, you're just playing scales,
Mhm.
let's say. Like,
Mhm.
that doesn't make you feel like, wow, I've really made
Right.
progress. Like I showed up at the party, like this vision I had in my mind
Mhm.
where everyone belonged, but there was no kumbaya because I was just doing, D major scale, and
Mhm.
that's not fun for people.
Right.
And I'm not denigrating the work of doing
Yeah.
that, but I just think focus on the thing that you want to be able to do,
Mhm.
own that thing, and then
Mhm.
figure out what are the 80-20 elements? What are the things that are the highest leverage?
Right.
You get the highest return
Mhm.
doing, right? Many things that you could do.
Yeah. I like that because you're setting a goal, but you're keeping the motivation by the progress. So, and
Like,
if you're putting in the SMART goal, then it's like, I'm going to learn Chopin's Nocturne in E minor by this day. And I'm just going to start with the first two
oh,
pages and master that and then go on and move on.
exactly. Yeah, that's the perfect way to do it. And that's how I'll put a chart up of SMART goals that check all the boxes,
Mhm.
SMART. But then I'll say, but wouldn't it be better to start with a SMART goal like instead of I'm going to learn conversational Japanese, but like who knows when you're done doing that by this date? What if you just said, I will be able to introduce myself in Japanese in social and business settings by November 1st, right? I can tell you because I know the language, there's a lot of, hierarchy, and there's kind of, there's feminine speech, what's known as feminine
Mhm.
speech. There's masculine speech. There's hyojungo, which is just standard Japanese. There's respectful. There's self. lowering and other raising, like respect language. It's a very complicated language.
Mhm.
Let English too, by the
Yeah.
way, but they just have names for all these things. But the truth is, if you want to be able to introduce yourself in a business and or social settings, um, you have to know 12 words.
Cool. Yeah, well,
I can show you that in 5 minutes.
well,
And then if you say those words out loud for 5 to 10 minutes a day, they're going to be burned into your memory.
mhm.
And then guess what? Now you can introduce yourself to someone. It's the start of a conversation.
Mhm.
Then you have a article that says, I'm going to have a 5 minute conversation once I meet someone. So what are you likely to come across after you say, hi, my name's Steve, what's yours? And you go through that ritual,
Mhm.
then comes next, right? What
Right.
do you do? Oh, I play tennis. Oh, I play tennis too. Where do you
Right.
play? Now you have
Mhm.
expand horizon,
Yeah.
but you're not randomly expanding. You're not just looking at note cards that say, here's how to say Wednesday. And
Right.
then the next one is how to say pink turtle. It's like, I
Mhm.
may never say either of the words in my
Right.
life, right?
Yeah. I really like that because you're dissecting it down to, okay, you just need these words. Once you know these words, then you're going to know in that setting how to use those words, whether it's, male or female or a business setting or,
Mhm.
comfortable setting or, work familiar. So I think that's really great because then you can move on.
Or is that you're not only is it reinforced, but psychologically, that's where intrinsic motivation comes in. You don't think of it as motivation,
Mhm.
but you just think, wow, I'm making
Yeah.
progress. Like you're proud of yourself. Like I've been doing this for 4 weeks and I just basically had a conversation with someone in another language. I'm not too old to do this, like that's keep you going. Whereas and the truth is, it doesn't, for motivation, it doesn't matter so much whether you are making progress. It matters whether you feel like you're making
Right.
progress.
Right.
And so if after a month you're able to do something that surprises you or that you're like, wow, I put myself to the test and I'm so much better than I was last time,
Mhm.
what you are or not doesn't matter for intrinsic motivation purposes.
Mhm.
You just have to feel like you're a better person, speaker, communicator, whatever today than you before,
Right.
right? So that's kind of we're bullet. That's what I think people get wrong about motivation.
Yeah.
That we know, I mean, any intelligent person is going to say, yes, of course, you can't be motivated by external factors for very long. It's not going to get you through the hard times. We need intrinsic motivation. But okay, so knowing that, what are you going to do?
Mhm.
What you're going to do is focus on the highest leverage ingredients, contents, and then power those. Like
Yeah.
just do like you said, like build the muscle memory
Mhm.
on those. And then that's going to be reinforced. And you're going to be like, I've been playing piano for a week and I can already play Let It
Yeah.
Be at a party. That's total progress. This is
Right.
amazing.
Right. Well, and I think that progress, like what you were saying, it's kind of a belief system too. Like you said, like you're just reinforcing yourself. Oh, that's amazing. I just played that at a party. Because I think that comes into it play the belief system of the am I good enough, right? Like that's why you're scared to play in front of people because it's like, am I good enough to play in front of people
Okay.
or sing in front of or do the national anthem in front of everyone? My daughter sang the
Of
national
course.
anthem one time in front of a basketball game for her university, and she said she
Was she
was really
nervous?
nervous, but she did it really well, and she had done it before for high school, so she was like, "Oh, I've got this.
Yeah.
I've done this." But it is that belief
Yeah.
system. So as you're progressing through your goals and the motivation goes away, then it's like believing I am making progress and seeing and continuing on with your goals. I think that's great.
And you're right about you brought up something
Oh, yes.
important that is kind of precursor to
Uh-huh.
that. So there are I want to get her name right in the source. I think it's Carolyn Dweck or something. She's a PhD
Mhm.
psychologist. In the 90s, she coined this term that I think most people have heard by now, but it's this mindset of fixed mindset or growth mindset.
Mhm.
If you don't have a growth mindset, none of the stuff we're talking about
Right.
matters, right? Fixed mindset are basically like, I am who I am. I was born this way.
Yeah.
And a growth mindset says, I believe that my capabilities, my, progress,
Right.
my skills are malleable. They can change with
Right.
practice. If you don't believe that and you just think, well, I'm bad at math or I'm afraid of public speaking, I'm just one of those people, I'll never change. Doesn't matter what advice you get from anybody,
Yeah.
right?
Because that's what you're gonna.
You're right. That's the precursor
Yeah,
to all of
for
this.
sure.
You won't even start.
Right.
That's the thing.
True.
There's so many people, like I got this I did a keynote for a company in Dallas, and we went out after and people had a few drinks, and I was kind of getting feedback on what they learned earlier and what they thought of it. And this cute older woman asked me, because I did the work, "Well, I'll be all unbelievable. I learned 5 chords in the ukulele just so I could play it for my
Yeah.
niece in like a day.
Mhm.
Have any prior skill or knowledge of it. I just understand music well enough to know if I just get these few things down, I'll be able to do it." And she was so excited. And she said, "You just inspired me to learn, play the ukulele for my granddaughter."
Yeah.
I'm like, how amazing is that? She would have gone through her whole life with a fixed mindset.
Mhm.
I'm too old to start doing it
Right.
now. What are my scales at my
Right.
age?
And there's so many songs, it's gonna be too hard.
But
Yeah. Instead of
yeah,
saying,
I mean,
"Oh, you're
the
ringing 4
rhyme is
chords."
like, yeah, 4 chords, 20
Yeah.
minutes. 20 minutes, you're gonna see
Yeah.
progress. From 0 to 20 minutes, you are gonna see
Yeah.
progress. Like, that's such a cool thing, you know?
Yeah. I really like that. Tell us what the essential Pareto principle is. And I don't know what the word Pareto means, so to explain that.
So Vilfredo
Okay.
Pareto was an Italian
Oh,
economist, and
there we go.
the Pareto principle is the 80-20
Oh,
principle.
that's
That's
what we're
really what
talking about.
it is. So he was an economist in the
Uh-huh.
1800s, and he's the one that I think eventually found that wealth distribution was disproportionate. So 80%, or I think it was landowners
Well,
at the
uh-huh.
time, right? 80% of the land was owned by 20% of the people living in
Uh-huh.
Italy. And then he had some like breakthrough eureka moment with he was gardening and it was like 20% of the pea pods that he planted only produced 80%
Mhm.
of the growth. So then he started looking at all these things and all these places that are prized. And it's like, that's the Pareto principle. That's what we know as the 80-20
Okay.
principle. Like I said, it applies in so many areas of your
Yeah.
life. And so it becomes a lens kind of to look through because I mean, life's complicated
Mhm.
for everybody. Like adult relationships are complicated. Having children is complicated, upskill for work and doing what you love and being able to get paid for it. All these things are complicated. And that can just drive you into
Yeah.
overwhelm. And I have personally, when I say I'm overwhelmed or I'm busy, like I don't use the word busy as if proud of myself. Like, you know, I'm so important that everybody wants me and I'm busy. Like I'm embarrassed to be busy because I look at overwhelm as filter. I have failed to filter out that 80+% of things that are not high leverage and that I shouldn't be doing for me or and so it's like, so my question is always like, whatever I'm doing, whatever project, it could be a short-term thing or it could be my real job if I had one. It would be like, what are the few critical, most important things that I should be doing versus the trivial many? And you can apply that to, I mean, this shows up in friendships even. If you have 5 close friends, 20%, that's one person, is probably responsible for most of the positive joyful emotions that you get,
Uh-huh.
right? Like you think it's all positive. And then among those 5 friends, there's another 20%. So the one person there is like 80% of your
Right.
happiness, even though you have these 5 friend groups in
Yeah.
theory, right? So then there's the bottom 20%. There's probably one person who's responsible for most of the drama and toxicity and whatever. And I always joke with people like, if you're trying to think of who the toxic person is and you can't, it's possible that it's you. But no, but it's amazing how many ways you can apply it.
Mhm.
And if you step back and zoom out on the work you're doing, on the relationships you have, you can really change your life by, for example, just one example, simply cutting off one
Uh-huh.
person most toxic.
Mhm.
Just doing that has measurable, I bet you could measure your cortisol before and after
Yeah.
you with a friend or just kind of kept them at arm
Uh-huh.
distance. The quality of your entire life will improve.
Yeah.
So it's a really important principle that sometimes very scarily ends up actually being 80-20. So I've worked at all my businesses this way too. And sometimes it's 80-20 almost to the dollar. And that's scary.
Uh-huh.
These that I've worked for, there were literally 10 salespeople at the last company that I worked for. One of them, I'm sorry, there were 5. So this is truly 80/20. 5 sales. One of them, the top salesperson, was responsible for 80% of the sales of the
Yeah.
company. That is textbook 80/20, and
Mhm.
it happens almost to the dollar. But sometimes it's even more disproportionate. So to me, it's not about the numbers and stuff like that. It's just like, when I look at my wardrobe, like
Mhm.
I've personally this commitment to when I get a new shirt,
Mhm.
I have 2 because I don't
I do
need
the same.
news. Yeah, absolutely. Like I don't need, there are people that need it. I'd much rather have them. So cool, right? And it's not like I'm going to be down to 3 things, but I know that I have way, way more that would much rather, have that available to other people. But that only comes from thinking, like backing up and thinking about, you know what? I live in Michigan. We have all the seasons here,
Yeah.
hardcore. If I haven't worn something in a year or 2
You probably
years,
aren't gonna wear
what
it.
is yeah, I think for whatever reason,
Mhm.
doesn't belong there, right? So I'm donate it to someone that it can be helpful
Mhm.
to, right?
For sure. Well, this has been really fun, Steve. Tell people like where they can go to get more information about you, how they can hire you to speak and or to have you on their podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. So if you just type in my name, Steve Acho, Acho, fortunately, I'm the only one. So makes it really hard for me to commit a crime or rob a bank because of that. But luckily or unluckily, that's it. But steveacho.com is my website. And that kind of functions as my digital business card. And I write a weekly blog that I've been doing for 7 years that just has bite-sized chunks of wisdom that you can read in 20 seconds or less. It's not monetized. It's not an attempt to do anything other than share really important life lessons and health, wealth, relationships, whatever it might be that were life changing for me. And I hope that they are for other people. So you can sign up there. And I'm on anywhere you listen to music, anywhere you can download or stream or steal music. If you search Steve Acho, there I am.
Awesome. Great. Well, we'll put those links up in the show notes if we can go and follow you and check
Oh,
out your
great.
stuff. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Great to talk to you.
Great. Well, this has been Elite Expert Insider. Go ahead and subscribe and follow us. And of course, share this with a friend if you know it would help them. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.